Hello folks, welcome back to my channel and thank you for joining me once again. Well, I've had a short break, trying to get some enthusiasm, some new material for you. Well, I've certainly got that today. So, something completely different, that it's a model manufacturer I have never experienced before, but I have heard great things about them, so I'm quite looking forward eagerly to doing this one. And this is ModelSvit, a company from the Ukraine who are, I guess, following in the footsteps of people like maybe Zvezda and ICM certainly in the Ukraine. So we also have, they've come up with 2 or 3 models recently, including the Mirage 3, or is it Mirage 3? Yeah, I think there's on a Mirage 2000 as well. But this is something much more interesting than that. It's the Tupolev TU-22, also known by NATO countries as the blinder bomber. Now this was rather a strange aircraft. It was, in my recent review of the Lightning talked about how it was like no compromises, designed for outright performance. Now they've kind of applied that to this aircraft in the Soviet Union, but they've gone way too far with it and they had a lot of problems, mainly surrounding the fact that they went for this design with the engines at the back. Now we'll get into more details as we go on later on, but they put the engines in a sort of airliner style of the 1950s, shall we say, up on the top, on the either side of the tail at the back of the fuselage. But these are absolutely massive, huge engines with afterburners, which completely give the aircraft a very tail heavy, especially when it's empty of fuel, a very tail heavy aspect in terms of its centre of gravity. And this caused many problems. So for example, when the aircraft's taking off, all is well, it's full of fuel because it's beautifully balanced. You've got fuel tanks in the wings and in the fuselage. But when it's been on a long mission for 7 or 8 hours and it comes back and it's empty, this plane could only land at very high landing speeds, and this caused a huge amount of accidents. Its landing speed was actually recommended not to go below what is effectively 215 miles per hour. So it's got to land faster than a Formula 1 car on the straight. Otherwise, what happens is it comes in and it starts to stall because there's no weight. All the weight's in the tail and the nose goes up and up and up and up and up. And if a younger, inexperienced pilot hadn't got sufficient knowledge of how to handle this, basically it would come in and it would tail strike and crash, on landing every time. So they had to land them very, very fast. They used parachute drogue system to slow them down. But there was lots of accidents where they ran off the end of the runway and exploded, or many pilots were killed. They used to call it the pilot killer, man-eater, I think was the nickname that the Russians gave it. It had lots of other strange and worrying design foibles as well. So, for example, the air conditioning units in this plane were basically fueled up by ethyl alcohol, which is effectively the same thing as vodka, and they used to call it the booze cruise plane because they used to actually drain off this ethyl alcohol, which is vodka, and drain it off, and they used to actually can it and sell it. The pilots and the navigator would sell this stuff, and they used to be drinking it all the time, of course. And there's actually a video on YouTube, I think it's called the Booze Cruise Bomber or something like that. You can go and have a look. It's very funny, all factual, and it shows them actually having drinks and taking it out of the air conditioning unit where it's got a drain venting pipe at the bottom. Absolutely unbelievable. They must have been sort of partially drunk all the time. But frankly, they needed to be partially drunk because the biggest and worst foible, if the thing about the engines isn't bad enough. So we've got what's quite a dangerous aircraft and tricky to fly. It has to be flown at this very high speed configuration for takeoff and landing. And the worst thing of all is that they bizarrely decided to have the ejector seats in the aircraft downward firing, not up. Now, an aircraft has a problem at altitude, okay, that's fine. Most aircraft have problems on takeoff and landing when you're in close proximity with the ground. And unless the plane was 350 metres above the ground, there was no survivability to ejecting. So the air crew themselves knew that this was a very, very dangerous aeroplane to be actually flying around in. And they went through a huge number of accidents. It's got one of the worst safety records, apart from the Starfighter from America. And we probably don't know the true extent, whereas we do with the Americans, they're open about it, but we don't really know the true extent of just how many crashed, but there was a lot. There was a lot of documented accidents with these. Several prototypes went down. One went down on the first flight, one went down, I think, the second flight, one went down the seventh flight. They were going down like birds, in a storm. So anyway, we'll talk more about that as we go through. But let's have a look then. So we've got a completely new manufacturer, so this is a real treat for us all, I think, certainly for me too. So it's a lot of Russian language on the front. There's not a whole lot of English, actually, if we're honest. But on the side, let's bring you in. On the side, we've got a couple of different schemes here that are possible. The reflections, that's better. There we go. And we have got, again, very little English here to tell me. Tail number 1960s, tail number 1980s, sorry, both 1980s. And this was the, I forgot to mention, of course, this was the very first supersonic bomber for the Soviet Union. And, when it first turned up at the Moscow Air Parade, people saw it flying over and it looked like a fighter, so it looked really impressive. I think it was only when the pilots and the navigators got on board, they were realising that, this was going to be a problem. In fact, there were stories that they even had like strikes amongst the aircrew refusing to fly the plane because they thought it was so dangerous in certain weather conditions. Crosswinds, it couldn't do crosswinds, not because the airframe was a problem, but the visibility was so poor out of the cockpit. And if you had to come in at a crosswind angle, 30 degree, you couldn't see because they've got the huge pillars in the cockpit. It's really bad design. And of course, the aircraft itself was superseded in the end. They call it TU-22, which is its original designation. But K. But later they redesigned the whole plane and made it the TU-22M, which is the one that's got engines in a more sort of conventional style on either side, intakes here and engines out the back, without this crazy thing. And they changed this ejection system to have a more conventional system. They basically corrected it all, but it's too late because quite a few pilots and aircrew have died. But anyway, some nice pictures on the side of the actual aircraft. Let's get into it and see what we got. I've got a feeling, based on other Ukrainian manufacturers, that getting in might be a challenge in itself. Oh, no, it isn't. Sorry, it's very straightforward, so I'll just gently pop that down there. We've got some resealable bags, so we can have a proper look at it. That's good. Oh, we've also got some. Oh, we've got some additional resin parts by the look of it too. It's like barracuda. Whoops. That's instructions and some decals. Right. Put that gently there. Right, now let's have a looky. I'm going to start with decals. We'll do that again. Quite a lot of sprues actually. Actually, it's quite a nice looking plane. It's not an unattractive aircraft. It's got sort of like a bird, isn't it? A jet bird. Very dangerous one. Right, so instructions. ModelSvit says, after hard discussion, the Design Bureau of Tupolev, which was appointed by the USSR government, decided to develop a nuclear Mach 2 jet bomber. The airframe was given the designation TU-22 K missile carrier, and it had jamming pods as well. And then we've got a bit of a colour call out. I've got a feeling these instructions might be a bit challenging actually, so I've just got a horrible feeling we're going to have some a lot of Russian going on, or Rusklish, English and Russian combined. We've got the sprue trees. That's nice, the way they've done that's good. That's very, very clear, showing you all the parts on the sprues. And again, there's quite, as I said, there's a lot of sprues here, a lot of sprues. I'm not sure what this retails for. I've got a feeling it's about £35, something like that. 72nd scale, obviously. Still going to be fair size to it though. It's a big old plane, And then we've got here, without missile on the closed bomb bay, or you've got preparing for suspension of missile. Oh yes, so you've got all sorts of options here. How about this? So we've got some sort of diorama options where they're loading the missile and then the missile loaded. So you can have it loading the missile loaded, or not. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? That's very good. Okay, so now remember what I said about these ejection seats. They don't go up, they go down straight to the ground, which is just what you want when you're trying to get to safety in an emergency, isn't it? Anyway, so you start building these. In fact, the actual instructions look quite clear the way they've diagrammed it. So you're building these lethal downward firing ejector seats. You can see the way it goes down like a ladder system that fires negatively back to Earth. You build up that system, and then the side of the internal cockpit walls, that's probably the first thing. And then you actually put your seats, your built seats go into the rail. And they sit back to back, so obviously the navigator sits facing rearwards, which is not ideal, I suppose, in emergencies, but anyway, novel. So you're building this sort of pod, this sort of crew pod, and then you've got the back-to-back seats there. Then you're onto your front of your fuselage, which is like a separate section. They've built this in a modular way, it seems. And then you've got your gear being built up here. And there's quite a few hatches and internal instruments and controls here that seem to be going on the wall of the forward fuselage. Then you're building having done the leg already here, you build the leg into the forward gear bay, and then you bring it all together and clamshell it together. I don't know what the fit's like on ModelSvit because I've never got any experience of them, but it looks alright, doesn't it? It all makes sense. Not like, who is it, AMK? Yes, they're famous for their instructions being about 1 million different processes, or certainly many hundred on one page, which is incomprehensible. But anyway, ModelSvit are not like that. They're nice and clear. So here we've got some like a main spar that connects the two central bulkheads, I think it is here and here. And then you've got your tail assembly there. And then you bring all these three, and it looks big now, doesn't it? The nose section, the central section, and that little tail section all get brought together. And then we get onto the engines, and you've got your compressor blades out front, which is quite nice. Not sure about this half and half, that could cause us some problems with joints, but we'll see later on. So the intake trunking is split, and in this case it's split 3 ways. I hate that even more, if I'm honest. It's not something I'm a fan of. So it's like a triple section to make the tube. You see, a lot of guys now, like Great Wall Hobby and others, even Tamiya, would slide mould that in one piece, wouldn't they? And that would avoid that problem of many joins, and you can have seams and things. Anyway, then you put it on your you've got your afterburner ring here. Let's bring it a bit closer, a bit far out. Afterburner ring here, and then you've got through to the main back of the jet pipe with the afterburner nozzle there. 2 of those, and 2 options for. Why do they show that as 2 different versions? The gear door at the front, not quite sure why that's different, it's a bit confusing. Zoom it back a bit. Then you're going to bring this all together. Yeah, there's certainly maybe potential for some problems here, but let's keep an open mind and trust that they've engineered it nicely. So actually they're fuel tanks, aren't they? It's the gear? The gear. Yeah, it's the gear bay, sorry. So because of the way the aircraft is laid out with its centre of gravity, just going back to this is actually the gear pods that are out on the wing to make it have good balance on the ground. So that's what you're building up here, and building up your main wing, top and bottom, clamming it all together, and you've got your tail. And then you're sort of bringing it, all these major components are coming back in together here with your tail, your engine pods, tail planes, wings themselves going onto the spars, and then the 2 wing mounted main gear with the wheels and tyres. All goes in then into the pods on the wing. As you can see, the doors go in. They did have some problems with this. Another problem this aircraft had, it had problems with flutter. It was quite common at the time actually. Even the British TSR-2 suffered from this at the beginning, and they managed to cure it, where the legs and the mounting points for the axles were not quite sturdy enough, and there was a lot of flutter on landing, like this lateral flutter, and they had the same problem with this plane. And then what it looks like they've got here is, this is quite interesting here, rocket assisted takeoff pods. That's very good. So this is when they're fully loaded with a nuclear bomb, full of fuel. They need rocket assistance to give them a bit more boost. Wow. Okay. And then you're putting in various pitos and aerials going in here, and then the deadly nuclear missile, which in some respects, from the rear view anyway, it looks a lot like a blue streak that the Vulcan used to carry. Victor as well. And then we're putting in our gear doors and the doors for the bomb bay as well. Okay. And then it shows you what it should look like when it's in position in the bay. So that's a deadly nuclear weapon we don't ever really want to meet in the West, isn't it? And then you've got various little intakes and aerials, vents, pitos, and you've got this rather nice loading trolley for the nuclear weapon, which is really cool. I think it's great they've included that. It shows, you can make a diorama of it being loaded. Brilliant. And then we've just got the paint scheme, which is going to be this sort of grey, silver, metallic, aluminium, light grey, polished steel combination. Bit of green and black here and there as well. Same again on the back. Different variant in the 1980s. And there we go. God bless everyone. There's quite a few stencils on the nuclear weapon, isn't there? There's a lot of instructions being shouted at you there. Very few on the plane, really, compared to others. Not that many at all. But loads on the bomb. Anyway, there we go. So, first impressions on the instructions are they're pretty clear actually. They're fairly well done. Just a bit worried about some of the way that the concept of all these, to create a pipe or a duct. They've got three components, which I don't really like. But anyway, we shall see. At the end of the day, I won't be able to give you judgment on that because I'm not going to build it. It's not my kit, this one. But it looks interesting. It's a lovely subject. I think they're a very interesting subject. Tu-22, big bad Russian bomber. The person who owns this kit, he loves that masking set? What's that? Yes, it's masking set. Yeah, he loves Russian bombers, and I think he's got the big bear, because the Russians really do this thing with bombers, don't they? They're always absolute monsters, to be honest. But this is actually relatively conservative by their standards, I think. Well, we've got some little sheet of stencils there, which look okay. There's quite a lot of carrier film though, if I'm being brutally honest. I don't know if this will pick up on the camera or not. There's a lot of carrier film visible. Yeah. I think they've got a bit OTT. That it's like the old school. There's a lot around it, and it sits like an island in the middle. I'm not sure now. So look at the main decals. And these are presumably produced by ModelSvit themselves. We don't seem to have that problem with the main decals. It just seems to be the stencils where we've got quite a lot of carrier film. Again, a bit more than you'd like here, but not as bad as the others actually, in fairness. But it looks good. It's got that sort of low-key, nasty dragon here. That's quite cool, isn't it? Dragon there, and we've got some sort of an eagle here. Different squadrons. Yeah, they look okay. A little bit sort of dull perhaps, but that probably goes with the territory for these sort of planes, I think. Very nice. I can't see any major problem. It's just, yeah. I think maybe if you've got a nice shiny metallic finish, that those the carrier film probably won't be quite as bad a problem, because you've got a nice smooth finish that'll go down. You probably won't see it, hopefully. Now, we had here, we misplaced it. Yes, here we go. We've got something extra. Now what we have is the Barracuda TU-22 blinder exhaust set. Flame holder. Okay, so we've gone to town here. We've got some really nice stuff. Let's have a look. All resin. I do like Barracuda stuff. It's always good, in fairness. So, look at that. Afterburner petals. Let's have a look here. Let's get you in as close as we can for this. Bring you in a bit closer. How's that? Those are nice, aren't they? Afterburner petals. Yeah. And we've got flame ring here. Oops. It's also got the trunking. Well, I mean, this goes back to exactly what I was talking about. So my friend here, who's lent me this kit very kindly, he has recognised exactly what I recognised in the instructions about multi-part trunking for the engine piping. Is going to look hideous, so he's just gone for one piece resin, and that's going to solve that issue, isn't it? And, you can see here, whoops, see it there, can't you? That solves this problem of having 3 pieces when only 1 is needed. That's going to look fantastic, isn't it? And you've got, there's quite a lot of trunking actually in this plane. There we go. Looks nice. And you've got your flame ring here. Very nice. Yeah, that's cool. And then you've got your final, very back tailpipe there. It's got this look like a little petal design, isn't it? Like a little. Can you see that? You know what I mean? Unusual, isn't it? Very nicely done, though, aren't they? Beautiful. So that's those. That's beautiful. That saves you having the problem I moaned about. It cures it instantly. Gently get those back in, and then we've got some undercarriage parts as well. Also, just point out that the some really nice instructions that go with this Barracuda set. Tells you all about how to do it and gives you photographs in colour, which I think is invaluable. I wish more manufacturers would do that. It tells you to remove the flash, but it pictorially shows you, especially at the bottom pictures there, exactly what it should look like once it's assembled. Very helpful, excellent. And then we have the Barracuda cast set of main wheels, because it has a lot of wheels as you saw. What does it have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 10? Is it 10 or 12? 10 I think. Yeah, 10. So here's the, and this is repeated obviously several times, that is the main undercarriage wheels, outside and inside. This looks really good. That's the Barracuda set, and it's set number BR72286 if you want them. And the other set was BR72287 if you want the engine parts, pipes. Well, we won't go through that because we've just seen that, it's just the nose wheel we want to see. See that as well. There we are. Nose wheel and tyres, they're nicely done. They've got a real deep recess to them. See that? Fantastic. Too close to the camera there, I think. Yeah, those are very nice. Put them away. So those are obviously a well recommended addition to your TU-22. Right, then pop those down there and let's get into the kit. So, we'll zoom out now, see what we're doing. Now, I've never seen ModelSvit before, so it's a completely new experience for me. So, I don't know if this is presumably the way they send it out with like a click lock resealable bag. So, let's have a close look. So this is the central stroke rear fuselage section. Excuse me. There is it's got a shiny plastic, quite a hard plastic I'd say. It's got recessed panel lines, though they're very faintly done. There's not a lot of depth to it. Bit of flash here and there, you can just see that here. There. Flashy. A bit flashy here as well. Let's pop these together. Now it's interesting, they don't have any locating pins. They don't have any at all. So how this will actually go together, I'm not sure. It seems to be good. It seems to be a fairly flush fit. Nothing a sanding stick wouldn't fix. Anyway, let's try it underneath. Let's see what that's like. Yeah, I'm not sure. It does remind me a little bit of Airfix from the 1970s, 80s. It's not a flattering comment. We've only seen one piece, so let's try and look at the rest. put them back in the bag, otherwise we'll get into it next. Yeah, it's a little bit, yeah, airfix, but without the locating pins, I'd say that looks like to me. Well, put that to the side, and now let's have a look at these. What have we got? Now we're on sprue this time. So, this is now the front of the aircraft, obviously. Yeah, a bit flashy. Quite a lot of flash here and there, retained on the parts. The shape looks good. And again, it's got this very fine recessed pan lining. Maybe too fine. I'm just a bit worried about that in terms of if you got primer and 1 or 2 coats of paint and then you try and get a panel wash to work on it, it might struggle. It's very, very fine. You know, the ICM kits like the Revel stroke ICM MiG-25, that doesn't have that problem, and this looks a bit shallow and a bit fine to me. Could be wrong. Proof of the pudding can be when somebody makes it, of course. And here we've got the wings. Whoops. Wings, let's have a look at those. Again, the plastic feels and looks a bit like not terribly well finished, I've got to say. It's a bit scuffy and a bit shiny. A lot of flash. It's a bit like a 70s airfix, yeah. However, the detail is good. Look at that. You've got here very nice detailing around the ailerons. That's very well done, in fairness. That's well moulded. How this all goes together, I don't know. A little bit warped as well, has to be said. You see that? Oh yes, it's a bit like Meng's Fokker triplane there. Oh, actually no, it's not that bad. This one seems less so. This one seems better on the other side. So that's the starboard wing. That seems alright. It's just that port wing is a bit warped. I think when you've got glue in it, I don't think there'll be a problem. I think when you glue that together, that'll be fine. So, won't harp on that. What have we got here? Well, it's the tailplane with the rudder. That looks okay. Again, not terribly enamoured with the plastic quality, if I'm honest, or the finishing. It just looks a bit, I don't know, a bit rough perhaps. But the actual engraving's good. It seems better on this tail, in fairness, and the rudder looks good. That's alright. Tailplanes, there's like an outer and inner section which looks okay. A bit of a sink mark there. Don't know whether that's right in the plastic or not. I don't mind it when they have these cutouts. I think they always usually work quite well in terms of getting the parts to locate and sink in together nicely. That's good. Then we have got these again, very flashy though, very flashy. You're going to have to do quite a lot of clean up with these. Yes, all over the place really. But I've seen worse in a Revel kit, in fairness. An F-15E wasn't that brilliant. These are the little pods that carry the underwing main gear. And then here we've got this is part of this central section where we've got some bomb bay doors and the structure that holds the internal structure for the bomb bay. Again, quite flashy. Very, very mild, overly mild, the pan lining, I think. However, it's 1/72, so you've got to bear in mind it shouldn't be. If you go very deep, it's going to look silly, I suppose. So, not saying that's a negative, but just a bit noticeable, that's all. Pop those back in there. And then we've got clear parts. Let's have a look at these, seal at the back. Yeah, and you can see what I was talking about earlier, and I moaned about, well I didn't moan, but I was just observing that there was a lot of problems when they were in crosswinds because of these very thick pillars that they've got on the canopy. The windscreen doesn't give great visibility, especially at this angle, 30-degree angle or more. The pilot couldn't really see out. You know, doing an approach, trying to do a banking turn in a crosswind, very difficult. In fact, they banned them from crosswinds more than, I think it was more than 18 or 20 miles per hour. They were not allowed to actually take off and fly in those conditions. The glass looks nice. Sorry, I'm probably not about history again. The glass looks nice. It's a little bit, I don't know if you can see there, not the most perfect a little bit airfixy from bygone era, not today's airfix, I'm stressed. But shaping looks good. Perhaps if you give it a polish up or dip it in some clear, you'll get that to look a bit nicer. Right, move that along. And then we have got, there's certainly plenty of stuff in the kit, there's a lot of parts. So we've got obviously our undercarriage here, which the owner of this kit will be using. And they put them in black, a bit Matchbox-ish, isn't it? A throwback to Matchbox there. I put them in black. They're not bad actually, not as good as the resin though, you know. But they're not bad in fairness. If I was to be honest and fair about it, that plastic is rather unusual. It's reminds me of that two-tone stuff you used to get in things like the Mastermind game. People of a certain age will know what I'm talking about. Like a two-tone, almost like a camo plastic. Don't know if you can see that here. See it? Strange. But it's no flash on this one. This one's nice clean sprue, so don't learn too much. Then we've got the top and bottom of the engine pod. This huge, massive engine pod that looks double the size it probably needs to be, but I suppose you have to have a certain length to make the tuning of the engine work, which of course normally isn't a problem when it's within the fuselage, but you know, you realise that to get the engine performance they have to have trunking that's the right length, so that's why it's so big. Again, rather flashy. Yeah, not sure about this panel lining, it just doesn't seem... Things like the grills and intakes here, the vents, they look nice, but I'm not sure how well it's going to take a wash, this model. And here we have this god-awful, really, 3 parts to make up a bit of trunking, which is why the owner has wisely gone elsewhere and sought a much better alternative. But the moulding's not bad on the engine afterburner feathers there. It's not too bad at all because there's 2 of those. Then we've got the flame burner afterburner holder rings here. Not bad, but not the best moulding I've ever seen. I can certainly see why he's gone and done this resin. And then we've got these jet assisted takeoff pods, which are very cool. Unfortunately they're not drilled out at the back now, so to make them look realistic you need to drill them out. I don't know if you can see that. They're all blanked off, which is not good, but another interesting element of the aircraft though. And then just 1 or 2 minor ancillary parts there, so we'll put that back. And we get to the last bag. There's lots and lots of bags and lots of screws. Oh, in fact there's 2 bags, I'm wrong. And here we go. So this is the tail section, which is where the parachute pops out. It's the only way it's got to stop in. So you're landing at 215 miles an hour or faster. You better have a long runway and a damn good parachute system for that, because you're going to need it, that's for sure. Actually, interestingly, this sprue is not as flashy as a lot of the others, so that's something. And we've got lots of small parts. They're not the crispest. There's quite a lot of... I've not got my strongest glasses on at the moment, but you can probably see this better than I can. There's quite a few little sink marks and things appearing in some of these parts. Here and there. And a little bit flashy. But it's okay. It's not bad. It looks better on that side. Yeah, it's okay. There's something that very finely moulded, like these undercarriage legs here. Done that quite nicely. Plenty of detail. Ejector seat components, I think we have here, building up your frankly lethal ejector seats. You know, you've got these flying around, and the Americans have got the Starfighter. It's like, frankly, you know, less of a danger to each other than they are to themselves in both cases. Actually, there's some good moulding here. I think I've got to give credit where it's due. This looks nicer. It's very, very small parts here, very crisp. Parts of the obviously undercarriage leg, nose leg I think it is here. Yeah, nose leg there for the front gear. Looks alright. And you've got these. Since you're on the bigger sprues, I think they're horrendous amounts of flash. And then you've got these bulkheads and the pod that goes under the nose, I think that is. The viewing window, side of the cockpit, internal cockpit sides, and the very incredibly dangerous downward ejector system. I mean, who thought that was a good idea at Tupolev? You know, these guys are pretty clever, and you know, give them credit where it's due. They know what they're doing. What they thought of there, why they came up with that, I just don't understand. You know, unless you were at a good height, you'd never be able to eject from the aircraft. That's just crazy. Anyway, we've got some of the internal structure, which is quite nicely done. Fairness. Yeah, it seems to. I think the biggest problem with this kit actually is the plastic quality is not nice. I don't think. Anyway, the finishing of the moulds is not brilliant. Rather than the moulding intricacy itself, I think it's more the finish. Maybe they need to spend a bit more time polishing the moulds before we use them. Finally, we have got the nuclear weapon, which just looks like an enormous, and even that's got flash on it. Can you see it at the tip there? Whoops, yeah, there's quite a lot of flash. It looks like a sort of an air-to-air missile that's just been on steroids, doesn't it, to be honest? but it's nice, and it's got some good detail on it as well. There's some nice little hatches and opening flaps and things, access hatches along there, which look really good. That's quite nice actually. And then we've got gear. Is that the main gear, or is that the ejector seat system? I think it's the ejector seat rail, one of them. And then you've got some of these various little controls and levers and actuators, I think, from the for the gear doors, I think those are. And then last but not least, we have got the front nose gear. And we have something here which I can't read. I'm going to put my other glasses on to make sure that I can read it, because I'm intrigued. What does that say? It says, produced by Master Group of Manufacturers, Ukraine. Can you see that? We're at maximum zoom. Yes, we are. Can you see that? That's interesting, isn't it? So ModelSvit, part of the Master Group, apparently. I have to say, as I said earlier, really, the owner has taken one look at these like I'm doing and thought, yuck, these are not very good on the small parts like the wheels. Those are not nice. They're very softly moulded, they don't look very accurately moulded. A little bit better on this side perhaps. But clearly the answer is resin, and I see why he's done that. No doubt about it at all. So, what do we think? I'm a bit disappointed, if I'm honest, on this one, because I love the subject matter. Despite all its many problems, the blinder was a great looking plane, I think. Now, I think ModelSvit, who I've not encountered before, I have seen other reviews from other people on the Mirage. I think that's better in terms of its quality from what I've read and seen. I'm just not sure about this. It just feels a bit like something Airfix would throw out of their factory in about 1978 and think it was great, you know. The design looks quite decent. It's more the execution that's not been too brilliant. It looks like it's a bit like Mended with the triplane versus Wing Not Wings, where they didn't quite get it right, and the actual basic thing of moulding seems to have been a bit off. Anyway, I'll tell you what we'll do. There's so many bags here. Just bear with me 1 second and I'll try and gather my thoughts. Good call on the Barracuda's owner. He did a very good move there, I think. Yeah, I think the instructions are good. I think the decals, I'm not sure about the decals. Let's see how they actually go. Proof of the pudding is always in the eating. I've said it many times before. You know, I can sit here reviewing kits, and your experience of actually building the kit may differ to the rating of giving it out of the box, because sometimes you need back in the box. There we go, I think we have it. Right. Got it? We've got it. Right. So, no, I'm not quite right. I won't push it in, I'll rearrange that later. I think it's a 7 out of 10. I like the subject matter. I think the instructions are good. I think with a bit of work it'll build into a really nice kit actually, but I think you're going to have to work at it. It's not going to be a shake and bake Tamiya-esque or even Great Wall Hobby where things go together nicely. I mean, you've got like big areas there that have got no locating pins, so you have to be very careful and take your time in actually assembling it, clamping it, etc, etc. But it's a nice scale for that aircraft. It'll still make up to be quite big, won't it? It's going to be, you know, this big. It's not going to be small. So there we go. So I've never seen ModelSvit before. I'm not going to be harsh on them because I say from what I've seen about this Mirage, I think that's better than this in terms of quality. Maybe they could clean up their moulds and they could sort this one. I don't think it's fundamental. I think it's more to do with the plastic and the mould finish, which could probably be sorted actually. Maybe if they just acid etch the mould and get rid of some of the roughness from it, and maybe they change the plastic quality to something a bit finer, a bit less cheap looking would be better. I don't think they spent a lot on the pallets of polystyrene, to be honest. So it's 7 out of 10. Anyway, hope you'll give me 10 out of 10 with a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do so, because there's going to be lots of more interesting kits coming up soon for you to have a good look at. Again, from some one or two other manufacturers, perhaps one of them at least you might have heard of. If you have subscribed and you're a regular viewer, please ding the notification bell, because if you do that then you'll get early warning about the next thrilling instalment in the series of reviews. In the meantime, thanks very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the review, and please all look after yourselves, stay safe, and I hope you'll come back to the channel very soon. In the meantime, thanks a lot and bye for now.